This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
And welcome to the latest edition of Tigers Talk with your host, Vito Chirco, alongside me, Padre, my dad, Jerome Joseph Chirco. Dad, glad to have you back in the fray. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I didn't have to wait 23 episodes or 23 years.
About 23 years, I think.
Whatever came first.
Yes. So, you know, it's a tough time to be a Tigers fan right now. And then especially when you see Lou Whitaker, Sweet Lou, get snubbed by the modern baseball era. And the committee there, and you had 10 guys on the ballot, 16 guys to vote for these guys, such as Whitaker. Whitaker did not receive the 12 necessary to get enshrined into Cooperstown this upcoming summer, as he got 6 votes instead of the 12 that were necessary to get enshrined once again via this modern era ballot. And it's a shame, it's a travesty. You can sum it up in many ways. And I would like to say that the committee made a mistake. Now, to you, though, Dad, how egregious of a mistake was this on the part of this modern baseball era committee?
Well, at first, my initial reaction was that I was, upset. But when you start looking at it, breaking it down, and there's 10 names there, and the guys that are on the ballot, and the guys voting that are historians and players, and you could probably talk in a room and amongst 5 of your friends, and someone's going to bring up a different name that they liked, Don Mattingly or a Tommy John or a Dale Murphy or a Dave Parker. So I think, it's always a tough thing. It's a tough call. I think we have our bias for Whitaker. So with Trammell in, and he's got the highest WAR, I think we were all hoping it would happen. But it's a little, it's upsetting, but what are you going to do?
And then Marvin Miller gets in, who was the head of the player union at one point and really helped create free agency and giving these rights and privileges to these players to have the mobility that they do now. So it was good to see him get in. I think he was a home run. And then Ted Simmons as well. A longtime catcher in the majors and a great hitter he was when he played. So those two guys end up getting in via this modern baseball era ballot once again. I think 2 deserving names. What did you think about those 2 getting in, Dad?
Well, Marvin Miller was, free agency was all about him. I mean, he, the players, there's players on that voting, by the way. So I would think, and he, was on there several times. So I would think at some point he was going to get in. He was an innovator. He changed it all for them. I saw a stat today where Catfish Hunter was the first free agent at $3 million, and now Derek Cole is $324 million. So
a little bit of a difference there, huh?
Yeah. So I think that in itself they have to it was a good decision. I mean, I'll put it this way: if anybody would have made it on that ballot after what happened last year with Harold Baines getting in, if anybody would have made it up to 10, I wouldn't have, lose sleep over and say, oh, my God, what a terrible decision. But, I think this year it might have been a little payback year. They might have made it, a little tougher in some way to not let everybody in. So it's very interesting. So, I think they got it right, but in the same sense, got it wrong.
Yeah, maybe missed out on putting Whitaker in. I think Whitaker, he's the biggest travesty of these guys that failed to get in. Now, back to him, because this is Tigers Talk. We're going to talk about the Tigers from a Tigers angle here, obviously, with Whitaker. I think what hurt him, too, to a large extent is that he never finished runner-up for MVP, was never close to winning an MVP award. There's that East Coast bias with those guys that play on the East Coast. He played for Detroit all his career, and they had those good years in the 80s, won the 84 World Series championship, won the division in 87. Yet that was it for the Tigers in terms of postseason appearances when he played with the Tigers. So I think those two factors hurt him. And then we talked about off the air too, Dad, about the voters. Who's voting as well on this committee? And I think that also could have hurt him and helped out some other guys. Maybe Ted Simmons was helped out by that. I don't think Marvin Miller. But, other players might have been hurt by that. And you had guys such as Dave Dombrowski, Walt Jocketty, those 4 baseball historians. Ozzie Smith was a part of this committee as well, the 16-member committee. So I think guys are hurt by that at times as well, Dad. And talk about what I just, referenced in terms of Whitaker and the factors that I brought up that I think hurt him and his candidacy for getting in via this modern baseball era ballot.
Yeah, well, good points, because Jocketty and Ozzie Smith are Cardinals, by the way.
And Ted Simmons, longtime Cardinal.
Gets in as a Cardinal.
Yep.
Last year we get Baines in, and you got LaRussa and Reinsdorf on the committee. So in 2 years, maybe it'll be Leland and Kaline and Whitaker get it. But in saying that, I don't want to, beat the drum there that it's not going to happen. But I think Whitaker's, now I'm not even a modern, I'm all about this WAR stat, but he's got the highest WAR of the 10 guys this year, and he didn't get in. So I think the WAR is going to probably get him in down the road, because you got a guy on the ballot the last two times, Dale Murphy, with 2 MVPs.
And you love yourself some Dale Murphy, Dad.
Yeah.
You've talked to ad nauseum about him
and,
to dominate.
He's not getting in with 2 MVPs. So what does that do for what are they looking at? It's very interesting. I feel like there's going to be a biased vote, and certain guys are going to get in based on who's voting. It's like the flavor of the day.
And Murphy had 3 or fewer votes. I think a guy like that, no offense to you, and I said it before, even without recording with you, Dad, that he should be off the ballot now, which I don't know what the stipulation is, if he's done now, because he was on the past time, too, when Trammell and Jack Morris got in via this modern baseball era ballot. So we'll see what happens to Whitaker, but he still has a shot to get in. And Ted Simmons was just like Whitaker, similar case as in he was left off the ballot on the Baseball Writers Association of America ballot after 1 year. It was a travesty for Whitaker not receiving at least the 5%, also for Ted Simmons failing to receive 5% of the vote. So maybe in retrospect, as much as we want to be negative about this decision from the Modern Baseball Era Committee, maybe Whitaker still gets in the long haul. And, other guys, you could be up in arms about them too. I know you are about Dale Murphy, but another guy that Dominic was, Dad, my brother, your son, other son, Dominic Chirco, he brought up Thurman Munson, a guy who played but then died tragically before his career was over. And if he would have kept playing, he probably would have had Hall of Fame numbers. There's a guy right there, along with another Yankee who was a captain of their teams, Don Mattingly. But when they were not that great, right? They didn't win a World Series championship with Don Mattingly. That might have hurt his candidacy. I mean, how about those dudes to you? Mattingly and Thurman Munson, I think 2 other guys that really had a legit case. For sure, Munson to me out of the 2.
Well, I think there was a tweet the other night when the voting went down that Simmons couldn't hold Munson's jock. And I thought, when you think about it, Munson was the complete catcher. He was the captain of the Yankees, probably a better captain. I don't want to say better, but a true captain, even probably more than Jeter was later down the road. And, he was defensive-oriented, clutch hitter, great teammate. I mean, in the day, it was all about Thurman Munson and then the rest of the Yankees. So you can make that argument. And Mattingly, he was, a great hitter, MVP. But, his Yankee teams didn't win. So, are they holding that against him? And in using that New York bias, what if Whitaker played out east?
I mean, don't you think he'd be in? I mean, you look at the WAR between him and Jeter; it's very comparable. I think Whitaker might even have a better WAR.
Yeah,
he does. I think he does have a better WAR.
I think he would be in, or he would definitely be having, getting a few more votes. And it's almost like now they're really like years ago these guys were getting less than 5%. But it looks like now, like we're really breaking this down. At the end of the day, at least it seems that way. I mean, that they're really, what do you go by? Do you go by, like I said, you got the modern stats, the WAR analytics, or you going by your gut feeling? And thank God there's baseball players voting that have seen him play or played with him.
And the eye test comes into the equation, I think, as well. So not just analytics, and you don't want to throw those out the window completely, but you want to, I think, have the eye test component as well. And I had brought up to you, asked you, because you watched Turnbull and Whitaker up close and personal for all those years when they were members of the Tigers. You said yourself Turnbull was a better ball player with the eye test as well. WAR not the same as Whitaker, but very comparable at the very least. But Turnbull had the better career. So as much as Turnbull should help out and maybe will end up one day helping out Whitaker get into Cooperstown, Turnbull had the better career. And you can't totally compare Whitaker to Turnbull. Same longevity, that longevity factor, longest double-play tandem in Major League Baseball history. But Turnbull almost won an MVP in the regular season. Should have won one in '87. And won the World Series MVP in '84. So Turnbull had a better case, right? In so many words, than Whitaker to start off. So as much as we think and would like to say that, well, Whitaker deserves inclusion now because Turnbull's in, Turnbull was the better ball player, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'd say he was better. It wasn't, oh my God, way better. And, let's not take, I don't want to, make that statement and everybody say, well, you're wrong, because if you look at stats later in his career, because, Whitaker really became a better hitter later, and he was starting to hit for more power. I believe one year he had 28 homers.
Yeah,
and I know he was in his 30s. So, I mean, it's really a tough call to distinguish one from the other. But if you had to pick one, I think you'd pick Turnbull. But Whitaker's right there. I mean, it's a shame, and and Turnbull said it best. It's too bad they almost couldn't go in together because of their 19 years together. And what is it? I don't know what these guys are looking for. I don't know what they're looking for. And as Ted Simmons is deserving, but for me to say 2 weeks ago, oh, Ted Simmons is in, he's a lock, no way.
No way. Now, Whitaker, I wonder if this also hurts him. I just thought of it because you kind of brought it up yourself. He became a better offensive player after 1987. This committee is putting players up for nomination based on the fact of their seasons from 70 to 87. And Whitaker became a better offensive ball player all around and with the power numbers specifically for sure, Dad, after the year of 1987. So if the committee's only putting up for nomination or consideration these guys that had their best seasons from 1970 to 1987, almost seems like Whitaker shouldn't be a part of this ballot, right? He should be a part of another veteran-era committee ballot. Seems like to me.
Yeah, well, you got 79 that came up together, so there's 9 years of ball players, supposedly.
That had the jump start on them, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, but, I would think the 9 previous years, there was a lot of great ball players in that day. And, you go back to the 1971 All-Star game at Tiger Stadium where I think there's, 15 guys that played in that game or in the Hall of Fame, or I might even be wrong with that count. So I'm assuming everybody that was really, Hall of Fame worthy is in. So, yeah, it's the parameters are tough. It's a tough call.
So the Veterans Committee hasn't worked out in favor of Lou Whitaker thus far. Still a couple of cycles. He'll be eligible to get included. So hopefully he will eventually, obviously, and we'll see in the 2020s if he does get in. But at the very least, I think the Tigers should retire his number 1 jersey. Now, this is the number that was worn by Jose Iglesias, a guy that can't even hold the jock strap, right, really, of Lou Whitaker. And I hope nobody else wears that number 1 jersey in honor of Lou Whitaker, whose jersey number, that number, I think should be retired this summer by the Tigers. Dad, what do you think about that, about him deserving that and warranting that, especially after being snubbed from the Modern Baseball Era Committee?
Yeah, I think they should. I mean, he's 62 years old.
He's your age, huh?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Age,
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
62 years young, I should say. And I don't know. It would be nice to see it happen. It's 2 years till they vote again. God only knows what's going to happen. It's not going to hurt. And I want to be promoting because of the team being so bad that they need something to, another old thing or another, thing that they promote that's, 40 years old. But it'd be nice to just do it and get it over with. And then if he makes the Hall, they can always have another ceremony. Who cares?
Yeah, 2 reasons to get people to come to the ballpark. And I think specifically they need it to sell tickets for a game, just one game, retire his jersey, and you get some people because of the nostalgia feel, right? And then watch him win that World Series championship in '84, such as yourself. Maybe I'll be there as a media member covering the event and would love to be there for that very occasion. Now, the Tigers on the ball field, really quick, Dad, in the summer of 2020, should be very dismal. Another 100-plus loss season, it looks like, at this very point. So as we approach 2020, Dad, what do we have to be excited about when it comes to the Detroit Tigers at the major league level?
I would say right now,
not much.
Not
too many
much.
words, right?
Yeah, the excitement is at a low level. I mean, are they selling the team? I mean, maybe Dan Gilbert's in line to buy, and they're not doing anything for that. But they're number one on the waiver wire. They can pick first. They have a shot at all these ball players. They're saying that they're going to spend money in 2021. Well, I don't know. You're gonna have another 48 to 60 win team next year. So I don't see it. And then you got these young pitchers coming up, and they're going to throw them into the fire. They're telling everybody that Jake Rogers was up too early, and it's just there's no real light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be another tough year.
And now they want another catcher, supposedly. That's a target of theirs. So kind of speaking of Jake Rogers, what do you think about him? Kind of evaluating him as 2019 rookie campaign when he came up, maybe he was rushed to the bigs because he couldn't hit. He couldn't hit to save his life, below the Mendoza line. So what do we think about Jake Rogers going into the 2020 campaign?
Well, he obviously was up too early. But, now they're saying a defensive catcher. Well, James McCann at first was a defensive catcher. I mean, you got to give these guys time. The problem with the Tigers is they don't have time. They do and they don't. I mean, they have time for certain things, and they don't have time for other things. But, shrewd moves. I'm waiting for shrewd moves to just get them by. Other teams do it. Why can't they, have a little bit of a game plan, spend a little bit of money, make some bold moves that at least get them to have some excitement down there because, their division's good. They got to play those teams 19 times. You got to get past 55 wins. I don't know how.
And, dude, you crack it. You crack the mold and get past 60 wins. I mean, I think getting to 60 wins, 62 and 100 is going to be tough for the Tigers this upcoming season. And now their three-headed monster at the top of the rotation, according to Alavila, is going to be Matthew Boyd, Spencer Turnbull, and Daniel Norris. By the way, I saw it tweeted out from Evan Woodbury, past guest of Tigers Talk of MLive.com. He said those are the 3 names that Alavila mentioned when talking about his rotation going into 2020. He left out Jordan Zimmerman. Now, I think just mistakenly and nothing meant by it. But how about that 3 to head the Tigers' rotation? Any kind of optimism when you talk about Boyd, Turnbull, and Norris as your 1 through 3 in 2020, Dad?
Yeah, it's a little tough there. I mean, Boyd showed some strides, but then he left a lot of homers last year. He wasn't, consistent enough. Turnbull probably pitched way too much. He was starting every 4th day, and he was overworked. I mean, he showed glimpses.
In the beginning, the first half, he looked all right.
And Norris, he had that streak of, I believe,
21 quality starts.
Which might have been a little overrated. He's got to take another step forward this year. I'll be honest with you, I could sort of live with their pitching. And, maybe some of the young guys getting beat up a little bit. They'll probably sign a veteran or 2. It's these position players. It's just there's
god-awful.
It's just god-awful. There's like no one. They needed to pick up somebody on like Villar or something just to get a good bat at the top of the lineup, and, for $10 million. Who cares? You could trade him at the deadline. So I don't know what they're doing unless they got so-called moves planned here for the next 2 months. We'll see.
Well, Christian Stewart just celebrated his birthday, Dad. Watch out for him in the corner outfield, the slugger. Okay, a big-time slugger right there, who actually was all right when healthy last year and got better as the season did progress. Nico Goodrum didn't have the greatest offensive season. Was good here and there, very streaky. Also a past guest, by the way, of Tigers Talk with Chirco and company. Anyways, you had said you heard Al Avila mention him as a trade candidate too, right? You heard that as an update on the radio listening this week, Dad. And what did you think when you heard that? Because I think you kind of thought it was funny, like myself.
I kind of chuckled. It was, like...
I mean, what are you going to get for him, right?
What are you going to get for him?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a borderline major leaguer. I don't know. I think you're just better off doing your homework, knowing the league, knowing what's going on, and, looking at waiver wires, looking at what teams, these small-time free agents, and here's the other thing I heard, Al Avila was supposed to be this international league or
international free agent kind of guy.
Free agent kind of guy. Where are they? Where are they? I don't. I don't see it. Where's these shrewd moves? What is he doing? And the Illiches. At this point, I don't think they even know what they're doing. So maybe they're going to sell the team.
Do you think it's apathy though too? I know I've said that ad nauseum to you off the air here. When it comes to Chris I and the ownership group. Because it feels like they might not know what they're doing, which I tend to believe as well, like you said, Dad. But I think it's also the level of apathy in that front office. And not with Al Avila. I think he does care. That's his job. He's been an assistant GM under Dombrowski for many, many years and an evaluator, right? Talent evaluator. I think it's the owner being apathetic, Dad.
I think it's definitely some apathy. And I think, they just signed this deal with Nike with these uniforms.
Did you see them? The swoosh. I don't know about that on the front of the jerseys, but...
And, there's some more free money. They can say they're losing money, blah blah blah, but they're doing okay. And even it's just I look at it this way: you got a stadium with 1,200 people in it on a summer evening, watching a grade AAA.
I say what grade? 4A at best.
4A baseball, and the other team gets 5 runs in the first, and your TV's getting turned off. So what is that? There's fans that are they're never going to be fans. In the younger generation, is just totally turned off.
And I think if Dan Gilbert buys the team, which I would like to see myself, we've talked about it as well off the air, Dad. And he's been rumored as a guy that if the team were to be sold by the Illiches, that he would be interested in buying the team. He has sold his ownership stake, and I guess he had to. He couldn't own anything right with the casinos in order to own a Major League Baseball club. So he's been the owner of the Cavaliers, and what I've liked about him with the Cavs, they've won a championship, but most importantly, he's always spent money, been willing to spend the almighty dollar. And in order to win consistently, you need the young talent, as in building organically from the farm system. They need to do that even more, a better job of that, especially with the position players. But they also need to spend dollars on, position players and upgrades for the Major League club, and sometime soon. And I think Dan Gilbert would be the guy that would be willing to do that for the Tigers.
Yeah, I think it would be a plus. And I think, the fans would react to it in a positive way. And, we're not sitting here telling you that, it's, Gilbert's going to be the greatest owner and he did everything right with the Cavs, so it's all going to be perfect. But the fans would definitely, think that would be a great move. The only way that a new ownership would be bad for the Tigers if the Fords bought the Tigers. Then we got a big problem.
That was a good way of ending it right there, Dad. I think we're done with Tigers talk for this week. Actually, a non-Tigers talk-related topic really quick for you. With the Yankees getting Garrett Cole, what do you think of that impact for the Bronx Bombers? And are they now the favorites to not only win the American League, but to win it all, you think, in 2020?
Well, yeah, I think if you watch the playoffs, with Sabathia retiring, I think they needed that ace, to get them. They got the hitting, they got the ballpark.
They got that bullpen, which is huge for them. Yeah,
they can set it up the way they want. The Red Sox are taking a little step back a little bit. They're really should win their division again. And, with him as your number one, it's definitely, can put them over the hump.
And Strasburg, really quick, goes back to the Nats. I saw that happening. They drafted him number 1 overall out of San Diego State, won the World Series, and a World Series MVP from Strasburg. So I thought he'd be going back there, and he did that for big money.
Yeah, it's good to see a little loyalty, go back there. Garrett Cole's talking about, he was going to go back. First of all, he was going to stay with Houston, by the way.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Didn't last.
That didn't last. And then he, he's a California kid, and he's going to go back to California. And so guess what? He takes the big contract and he's with the Yankees. So, does loyalty even count? And maybe to us older fellows, but it doesn't even matter anymore.
Not to the millennials like myself in so many words, Dad. I guess you can say thank you for joining me on this latest edition, kind of a holiday edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. And Merry Christmas, Dad, to you and yours, by the way.
Same to you, and hopefully, again, I'll be back before 2027.
Awesome. And I think I'll see you on Christmas Eve.
Oh, sounds good.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.